You know, when I was in junior high, 6th or 7th grade, I was blessed to have a mentor who invested a ton of time and energy into me and my small group of friends. For his day job, he actually worked with troubled youth in my hometown. But then he volunteered at our church, and he worked with smelly, snotty-nosed junior high boys like me. And one of the ways that he helped shape us, he would try to encourage us and develop, and he was really trying to develop our confidence and our courage. And one of the ways he did that was on a high ropes course. You ever been on a high ropes course? Quite an experience. Well, the particular high ropes course that we went to also had a repelling tower. And he would take us there several times a year. And there was this tower. It was 80 feet high, which doesn't sound high as I say it, but it really, really high. And in fact, it looked a little bit something like this. You ever seen one of these repelling towers? Or maybe you have been on one of these repelling towers. Again, as I say 80 feet, you look at that and go like, that's not super high. But if you get on top of an 80-foot repelling tower and you look down, it's scary, right? And so if you've done this, you know, right? You get a harness and they put a carabiner on it. And then there's a ladder and stairs and you climb to the top. And at the top, there's a rope that's attached to the bar. And then they hook you in, your carabiner, they hook you into the rope that's attached to the bar, and then it's the moment of truth. So you turn around with your back to the ground, 80 feet down, and you have to lean back, right? It's the moment of truth, because at that moment it requires total faith, total trust, and total confidence. You got to trust the harness, you got to trust the carabiner, you got to trust the rope, and you got to trust this guy that set it all up. Now, my experience is the first two times, again as a 6th, 7th grade little boy, the first two times, my knees are knocking, I'm scared, I'm hesitant, I'm trembling, I move very slowly, and I'm very uncertain. But you know what happened over time? I mean, the more we went, the more we rappelled, the more times that he would take me and my friends to this high ropes course, to this repelling tower. You know what happened? My confidence, my faith, my trust, it grew. And eventually, I could climb right up to the top of the tower. I'd get to the edge, and I could just fully lean back, legs straight, no hesitation. I had full confidence. See, here's what he knew, and this took me a while. Again, I was just a young boy. This was what took me a while to learn, but I finally got it. See, the only way to fully experience rappelling, the only way to correctly experience, the only way to go fast, the only way to experience full exhilaration and freedom was to lean all the way back, legs straight, just to trust the harness, trust the carabiner, trust the rope, trust the guy that set it up. The only way to really experience it was to go all in. You had to fully trust. And the more you trusted, the more fully you had confidence in all of the aspects, the faster you went and the more fun you had. Question: how much confidence do you have in God? I mean, how much do you trust Him? I mean, to use the repelling tower illustration. I mean, is your relationship with God hesitant? Are you shaking? Are your knees bent? Are you uncertain? Do you go slow? Or more of how I became, where your legs straight? Do you fully lean back? When you think about your relationship with God, there's no hesitation. When He says go, you say let's go. You know, you hear people talking about this idea of faith, right? And people will say things like, well, you just got to have faith, or have more faith, or put your faith in God. I mean, what does that really mean? Faith is really just confidence. It's just trust. Faith is confidence. So if someone says have faith in God, what they're saying is have confidence in God. So how confident are you in God? What if I told you you could know? What if I told you you could actually know? You could actually know how much confidence. You could actually know how much trust. You could actually know how much faith you have in God. You could actually see it. You could actually measure it. In fact, there's one area in your life that is a massive indicator. I mean, it's the biggest, it's the easiest to see. It's a massive indicator, and it revolves around this thing called money. Not money itself, not actual money, but your money. Your money, your possessions, your stuff, the stuff that you have, the stuff that you own, how you handle it, your attitude toward it, your relationship with it, how you actually steward it is a massive indicator of your faith or of your confidence in God. In fact, Jesus, he has a lot to say about this topic. He has a ton to say about money and possessions. Jesus has a ton to say about you and your stuff. In fact, money is such an important topic to Jesus that it was the main subject of nearly half of his stories or parables that he told. In fact, 1 in every 7 verses in the New Testament deals with the topic of money and possessions. In fact, if you were to take a Bible, there's about 500 verses on prayer. There's a little less than 500 verses on faith. There's more than 2,000 verses on money. It's that 15% of everything that Jesus taught was on the topic of money and possessions, more than his teachings on heaven and hell combined. I mean, why? Why would Jesus spend so much time on this topic? Why was it so important to Jesus? It's because he knew. He knew the stress and the strain that money and possessions causes you and causes me. See, Jesus knew. Jesus knew how money and possessions, how it would hurt and it would wound people and destroy relationships. See, Jesus was a genius. He knew that one of the top reasons that marriages would fall apart was around the idea of money. And Jesus knows. He knows the stress. He knows the anxiety that you feel and I feel at the first of every month when the rent is due, when the bills are due, when the school payments are due. And Jesus knew. He knew that money promises more than it can ever deliver. See, the promise that money makes is this: just a little more and I'll finally deliver. I mean, just a little bit more. I mean, once I get here, then I will be able to do this. And once I get here, then, I'll be happy. Or just a little bit more, and then I'll be generous. Then I can give some away. Or just a little bit more, and then, everything will be okay. Your marriage will be better. There'll be less stress. You can just relax a little bit. You could take an extra day off. But Jesus knew the problem with this line of thinking. See, more is a moving target. You can actually never get to more. You can actually never reach more. Money promises more than it can deliver. More is a lie. More is not true. And Jesus says, hey guys, when it comes to the idea of money and possessions, the answer is not more. It's not more. It's not even when. It's not the grass is greener on the other side. Jesus says, no. More is a lie. More is not true. More is a never-ending chase. More is a hamster on a wheel, and he just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And Jesus says the real answer, friends, it's not more. It's actually now, today, right now, currently. Jesus looks at you and at me and he says, hey, what do you have now? What's in your hand? What possessions? What is it that you have now? In fact, there was a guy named Paul who we've become to know as the Apostle Paul. And Paul was very smart. He was very successful. In fact, he was well off. And so when he writes this, he's not picking on you and me. Instead, he's trying to help. And he's writing to his protege, Timothy. And Paul has this very direct style. But look what he wrote, 1 Timothy 6, 17 and 18. He says this: Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but put their hope in God, who richly provides us everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share. So he says, command those who are rich in this present world. Now, the challenge with that sentence for me as a person and even as a pastor is that word rich. Command those who are rich in this present world. I think when we see the word rich, when I read the word rich, it's easier for me to dismiss that and go, well, that's not me. He's not talking to me. I'm not rich. Rich is them. Rich is those that have a lot of money, that have a lot of great possessions, that have big houses. And unfortunately, I was dismissive of this teaching for years. I would just blow right past it. Well, that's not me. That's not me. I'm not rich. I mean, you don't feel rich, do you? I don't feel rich. You don't feel rich. But see, the facts say otherwise. Did you know there are 3 billion people on the planet today who live on less than $2 a day? While I and you have rich people problems, right? You go to your closet, there's clothes hanging, and you have all these choices, all these options, yet you look and you say, I don't have anything to wear. Rich people problems. You pull out your smartphone, you go to Amazon app, and you order, and then you get a notice. It's going to take 3 days instead of 2 days. Rich people problems. You're watching Netflix, and for some reason the connection is weak, and that crazy, annoying circle keeps going around and around and around, and you're frustrated. Rich people problems. See, I was dismissive of this, and I ignored this teaching for years until I finally stopped, looked at the facts, and took a hard look in the mirror and said, I'm rich. I mean, sure, there are people who have more. Will always be people with more, but the facts are, I'm rich. I mean, say it out loud with me. I'm rich. That makes you uncomfortable. Say it out loud with me. I'm rich. See, Paul here is talking to me. Paul here is talking to you. And what do you think he's going to say? I mean, what would you tell rich people? He says, Timothy, command those who are rich, who are blessed in this present world, what? Not to be arrogant. I mean, how did Paul know? How did he know that the inclination of rich people is toward arrogance, toward pride? And Paul says, friends, don't let it go to your head. Arrogance and pride seem to be a special curse of the rich. He says, don't be arrogant. And then he also says, don't put your hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. And this is a huge idea. What Paul is saying is when you start to have more money, when you get a raise or you get a promotion, when you start to make more money, when you have more stuff, he says something happens to your hope. You don't see it coming. You don't plan for it. It's not necessarily intentional. It just happens that as your lifestyle changes, he's saying your hope, it begins to migrate. Your hope begins to shift or to drift. And your hope begins to migrate toward your riches, toward your stuff. It's why Jesus says so much about money. It's why Jesus talked a lot about it, because he knew. Jesus knows. And he looks at you and me and he says, I want you to experience freedom. I don't want the claws of money and stuff to get into you, into your heart and into your soul. And mostly Jesus says, I want you. I want all of you. Jesus says, I want your confidence. I want your trust. I want your faith. And Paul is saying, friends, don't let your hope migrate. Don't put your hope in the accumulation of wealth, in the accumulation of stuff. I mean, have you seen a shift in your attitude towards stuff? I mean, has your hope begun to drift, to shift, or migrate? Paul is saying, hey, command those who are rich, who are blessed in this present world, not to be arrogant, not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but instead put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. God's saying, remember, it's a gift from God. It's an expression of God's gracious generosity. Now, guys like me, pastors and priests and preachers, right, we get a bad rap. Like, well, all you talk about is money, or the church just wants my money. And the truth is, there are a lot of churches who talk about it poorly. And that's sad, and I'm sorry. But here at Miami Church, we have to talk about money. We have to talk about it because we are serious. Our mission is to help people find and follow Jesus. And if that's our mission and we're serious about it, we have to talk about money because Jesus talks a lot about money. Why? Because it's the chief competitor for your heart. The chief competitor for your heart is your stuff. And your stuff keeps you from finding and following Jesus. In fact, Jesus said this way, Matthew 6:21. He says, where your treasure is, there is your heart. And Jesus knew wherever your stuff, wherever your treasure, wherever your money, he says that's where your heart is. And Jesus knew. And Jesus knows that the chief competitor for your heart, the chief competitor for you is your stuff. The accumulation of stuff that you have, stuff that you want. And so Paul goes on. And again, in Paul's style, he's going after it. He says, hey, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant. Don't put your hope, don't let your hope migrate toward your stuff, but put your hope in God who provides everything for you graciously for your enjoyment. Command them to. Now, to keep your hope from migrating, to keep you from embracing your stuff instead of the one who gives you or provides you the stuff, here's what you need to do. Command them to do good. Isn't this interesting? He doesn't say be good. I mean, he's commanding all of us to be good. He says, hey, command them to do good. He's saying, hey, don't do good in the average way. He's talking specifically to you and to me, people who are blessed. He says, yo, you who are rich, you who've been blessed, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel guilty for being successful. Don't feel guilty for having a lot of things. Instead, do good. Use the resources that you have for good. Do good. Look what he says. He says, be rich in good deeds. Be rich in good deeds. In other words, the more that you've been blessed, the more that you have, the more opportunity you have to do good. Do more good. Be known for doing good. Not average, not status quo, but unleash unprecedented levels of good. Be rich in doing good. And then look, he goes on. And be generous and willing to share. I mean, why would he tell us to be generous? I mean, aren't rich people, aren't people who are blessed generous? Well, actually, statistically speaking, the more money a person makes, the less they give away. The more money a person makes, the less generous they are. Which, by the way, speaks to the lie of more. Like, well, when I get this, then I will. Well, when I make more, then I'll start being generous. Actually, statistically speaking, that actually never happens. See, it's a lie. It's not true. The more money a person makes, the less they give away. The more money a person makes, the less generous they are. Why? Because we begin to believe that we have to save our way to safety. And we start to have this tendency toward hoarding, toward closing our hands. And then when you are blessed and when you are rich, you do give, and maybe you give larger amounts, larger dollars, but you actually give smaller percentages. And the truth, statistically speaking, is that rich people give larger sums, but smaller percentages. Now, what I'm about to say here, it's so important. And I want you to listen because this teaching of Jesus, this is so important. And whether you're a Jesus person or not, and maybe this is your first time to be part of anything at Miami Church, maybe it's your 50th time. But what I'm about to share, it's so important that if it ever got into your heart, like if it ever really got into you, it could transform all aspects of your life. See, the issue, what Jesus is getting at, is not the number of dollars. It's the percentage. The percentage. See, the issue that Paul and Jesus are getting at is the percentage. And here is what Paul and Jesus, they just want you to get. This is what they want you to understand. Be rich. There's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with being blessed. There's nothing wrong with having stuff. And Paul, he's echoing the words of Jesus. He says, hey, be rich. That's okay. Be successful. But just be good at being rich. Be good at it. Just be good at being rich. And you can know. You can know. Well, how do I know? Well, how good are you at being rich? I mean, how can you know how much faith you have? How can you know how much confidence you have in God? Math. Simple math. How generous are you? How good are you at being rich? How good are you at being rich in good deeds? Simple math. What percentage do you give away? What percentage do you share? It's pretty simple. It's also hard. It's also very telling. See, my wife and I have a goal. Our goal is that one day we will give away more than we keep. That when it comes in, that more will go out than stay. That one day we'll give 51+%. That we'll be able to give and to share. See, we want to be good at being rich. We want to be rich in doing good. Now, as I stand here today and say this out loud, it seems impossible. It seems almost silly or even unlikely. And here's what I know. I can't do that today. I can't give away more than I keep. It doesn't make sense. But here's what I know. I have to start with what I have. What do I have now? What's in my hand right now? Well, whatever that is, I need to give. It's not more. I need to give today. Give now. And slowly, over time, over months, over years, and even over decades, my confidence in God continues to grow. And we keep giving more and more, and we keep raising the percentage, and the percentage goes higher and higher. And I believe one day that my wife and I will reach our goal where we'll actually give away more than we keep. That over 50%, 51+%, we will actually give and keep less. And here's what I learned as a junior high kid rappelling. This is what I learned on top of an 80-foot rappelling tower. That over time, after years, my confidence, my trust, my faith, it grew. And it continued to grow stronger and stronger. And in fact, it grew to the point where I could actually forward rappel. That's right, forward rappel, where you actually go to the edge of the tower, and instead of going backwards, you go face to the ground, and you run forward down the tower. Do you know in the area of money, in the area of possessions, in the area of stuff, it's the only time God says, put me to the test. The only time that God ever says, hey, put me to the only time that God says that is when it comes to the area of your money and your stuff. Because He knows that over time, if you keep being generous, if you keep increasing your percentages, if you keep stretching yourself, if you keep doing more and more good, if you keep being rich in good deeds, that what will happen over days and months and years and decades is your confidence, your faith, your trust in Him will grow, and you'll be good at being rich. One last time from the Message translation. Hey, tell those who are rich in this world's wealth to quit being so full of themselves and so obsessed with money, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Instead, tell them to go after God, who piles on all the riches we could ever manage, to do good, to be rich in helping others, to be extravagantly generous. If they do that, they will build a treasury that will last, gaining life that is truly life. God, thank you so much for this amazing teachings and for the teachings you have about your stuff. God, the heart of your message is, God, you want us. You want all of us. And that our stuff and the accumulation of stuff and our money and our bank account, God, these things can all distract us. God, they can take our focus, take our hearts away from what it is you want, God, and that is you want us. You want to be in a relationship with us. So God, I pray our hope won't migrate to our stuff, but God, that we'll keep focused on you. And God, you give us so many things. You have blessed us. You have blessed us with resources. You have blessed us with clothes and cars and houses and families and so many things that we are blessed to have. God, I pray that we won't put our hope in that, God, but we'll put our hope in you, and that we'll take the blessing you have given us and follow the instructions that you've given us, God, and be good. Let's just be good at being rich. God, the prayer for me and my family, the prayer for our church, God, is let us be good at being rich. Let us do good. Let's be rich in doing good. Let us just unleash unprecedented amounts of generosity on people, on communities, on our neighbors. God, I believe, God, if we take this to heart, not only will it change us and change our families and change the way that we live, and we'll experience freedom and hope and wholeness and what you call abundant life, but also, God, it will make a great impact on those around us. So, God, may we take these words to heart. May we put them in practice. And, God, may we just today increase percentage. May we just give more and more and more and be good at being rich. And, God, I pray this now in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. We're now going to transition into a time of communion. And I love when Greg says there's always a party in Miami. So when someone decides to give their life to Jesus, we celebrate, we party, because that person has now made a decision to make Jesus Lord of their life. At that point, we celebrate with bread, cracker, and juice, remembering the sacrifice that Jesus made for us when he died on that cross and rose from the dead. If you've made Jesus your Lord and Savior, let's partake in that meal together right now.